तव कथामृतं तत्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गणन्ति भूरिदा जना. Your words are like nectar, bring life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome, everyone, to our class on the Gospel of Ramakrishna. We are on chapter 27 at Dakshineswar, Sunday, September 7th, 1884, and we're on page 514. And just to get the setting, arrangements have been made with the musician Shyam Das to entertain the master, and the devotees with Kirtan. Babu Ram is there, M. Manomohan, Bhavanath, Kishori, Chunilal, Haripado, the Mukherjee brothers, Ram, Surendra, Tarak, Niranjan, and other Latu, Harish, and Hasa. So it's a large gathering in Sri Ramakrishna's room. He'll be sitting on his cot, and they'll be sitting on the floor. And we'll start towards the top. That Sri Ramakrishna is saying that you see how many opinions there are about God. Each opinion is a path. There are innumerable opinions and innumerable paths leading to God. Bhavanath. Then what should we do? Master, you must stick to one path with all your strength. A man can reach the roof of a house by stone stairs or a ladder or a rope ladder or a rope or even by a bamboo pole. But he cannot reach the roof if he sets foot now on one and now on another. He should firmly follow one path. Likewise, in order to realize God, a man must follow one path with all his strength. Now, this we know this idea of Nishtha, and sometimes we wonder that do we have to choose, am I Jnani, am I a Bhakta, Karma Yogi, that one path that we choose can be an integrated path. It can include lots of other things. It's just that we don't really make any major shift. That we'll do it for a while and say, this isn't working, then I'll try something else. But it doesn't mean we have to be one-sided or monotonous. We can, in fact, we're encouraged to incorporate all of the yogas. This is what Swamiji says, either by one or two or three or four, all of them together, that we try to realize the highest truth. So generally, the safest and strongest spiritual path is the one that takes advantage of all of them. But it has to be coherent and consistent and integrated. And whatever our Ishta Devata is, whatever that aspect of God that we like, or aspect of spirituality, whatever it is, that should remain solid with us. But it shouldn't be exclusive. And we should feel devotion to all different spiritual paths, but we stick to our own. And Sri Ramakrishna in other places gives the example of the daughter-in-law who moves into the house of her in-laws, and she serves her mother-in-law and father-in-law and aunts and uncles, a joint family, with great love and devotion and care, but has a special relationship with her husband. And it's through that relationship with her husband that she has a relationship with all the others. So because we have special devotion to our particular spiritual path, we can feel sympathy and connection with all other people, whatever their path is, because ultimately we have the same goal in mind. So this is that concept of Nishtha. So then Sri Ramakrishna continues, but you must regard other views as so many paths leading to God. You should not feel that your path is the right path and that other paths are wrong. you mustn't bear malice towards others. So this is that extremely liberal point of view and attitude that Sri Ramakrishna had. And in his case, he was led, we can say, by the Divine Mother to practice all of these different paths. So this isn't some theoretical idea with him. He practiced them and realized that they do lead to the same ultimate goal. Now, sometimes we think or we hear that all religions are true. Huh? We'll hear something like that. It doesn't mean that each and every statement that is made by every religion is true or verifiable. It means that if one practices any particular religion with faith and devotion, and that through that practice and through their faith and devotion, they can have the highest type of realization. Sri Ramakrishna makes the other point that no spiritual tradition is perfect. There are mistakes in everything. Nobody's watch keeps in the perfect time. I'll give one interesting example is Mother Teresa. Now, we generally consider, or many people consider her to have been a very, very saintly person. And of course, in the Catholic Church, she is considered a saint. She's been sainted. So, and she treated everyone with great love, and how she worked for people dying on the streets and going into the worst areas and helping people that were given up by everybody else. At the same time, she had a perfect conviction that unless one accepts Christ, one will not go to heaven. So her conversion, they did convert people. And really, she felt that her mission was saving souls. Now, this is something that through this tradition that she followed, that she became a very saintly person, but we won't accept the truth of that. I mean, we'll look upon that as kind of a very narrow path, very narrow or tradition or belief that one has to accept a particular deity in order to have ultimate realization, or in that case, going to heaven. So we can say that if we want to start to criticize, that this is one aspect of that tradition that's not very open and very liberal, and a little one-sided, and looking down upon other religions. And yet, through that tradition, one can become a saint. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. He's not saying that everything that we find in every religion is absolutely true, but it depends on the devotion and faith of the individual following that tradition. And we like to think and we like to hope that as we go deeper in spiritual life, that we become more universal and more open. But this is just a different type of tradition. I personally don't fault her for that belief because it was such a strong part of her religious training and everything. And yet I don't accept it and I don't like it. But still, I understand it, that she wasn't trying to convert people to increase the number or anything like that. She felt that she was saving souls. So we have to understand that just because every spiritual path can lead us to the highest type of realization, that there may be certain things that we reject. As Ramakrishna says, that all of the teachings and scriptures and things are a mixture of sugar and sand. We take the things that are of value and the other things we leave behind. We don't throw out the whole tradition because of one or two things that we don't like. Although we draw the line sometimes. If there are certain traditions that are really harmful and hurtful and everything, then we just leave them alone. I think Sri Ramakrishna's way of looking at it is beautiful. He says this is also a way to get into the house, but it's going through the back door where the latrine is, where the scavenger goes. Don't go that way. But still, he says it's a path. It's still a path. So mostly it depends on the devotion of the person following that path. This is the most important thing. their Shraddha, their Nishtha, how much conviction they have and how willing they are to really try to follow that path. Then he continues, well, to what path do I belong? Keshav Sen used to say to me, you belong to our path. You are gradually accepting the ideal of the formless God. Shashidhar says that I belong to his path. Vijay too says that I belong to Vijay's path. Yeah, and Ramakrishna used to say, whoever comes to me thinks that I belong to their path. Now, why did he say that? Because he felt tremendous sympathy with all different spiritual paths, and he practiced all of them, and he could put himself in that mindset and worldview of those who followed those particular paths, and really feel that some fellow feeling with those following that path. So when he followed these particular paths, he did it 100%. It wasn't like, yes, I'm a Hindu and now I'll try to follow the Sufi school of Islam. At that time, he tried to feel that he 100% belonged to that spiritual path, in his dress, in the food that he took, not going into the temple, not keeping any image of God. He followed all of those things, doing namaz five times a day. This is how he could really feel what it's like to follow this path, have that realization, and then be able to say, yes, this is also a path. I mentioned this incident once before. I like it very much. That's Swami Vivekananda. He was on a ship, and most of the workers on the ship were Turks. And he was having such a good time with them, laughing and joking and everything. And Sister Nivedita said to him, Swamiji, how do you do it? How do you so easily identify with people of all different cultures and religions and ways of thinking and ways of living and everything? And he hesitated for a minute and he said, yes, it must be the instructions, teachings that I received under Sri Ramakrishna, that he had that ability to just completely identify with all of the people of these different spiritual paths that he was following at that particular time. Now, he could identify so easily because he had no particular identification with his own physical body even. We have trouble identifying with others because we're so identified with our own spiritual path and our own ethnicity and religion, and this is what it means to be culture bound. That there are many people that they just can't even enjoy food of other cultures, that everything has to be what they're used to. And for Sri Ramakrishna, he had such a little identification and feeling of being bound to his past and his body and all of that. He could very easily transcend these things. Swamiji also, how easily he could fit in with Western culture. Of course, they had the experience with the British, with the English in India and everything, but still, it was just a very simple thing. Wherever he went, he could enjoy the company of everybody. So this is a wonderful thing that for us to understand that we can have tremendous respect for different spiritual paths. We can recognize that each one has a little funny things to it, maybe some superstitious things to it, maybe a little one-sidedness to it. The Vaishnava tradition can be very one-sided, and yet it can lead to the highest type of devotion. We recognize these things. Shaktas also, they can say, yes, you have to accept Divine Mother. All of them. Islam, of course, we know. Christianity, of course. All spiritual paths will have a little bit of feeling of superiority. See, in Vedanta, because we don't feel superior to anybody else, we feel superior. We can feel superior for being more liberal than everybody else. Huh? Yeah, you're all one-sided. We accept all views. See how wonderful we are. Yeah, really, it's true. So But the other side of it is that that doesn't mean that we have to be a little wishy-washy, that we can be firm and stick to our own spiritual path. And as I say, this spiritual path, it doesn't have to be narrow. It doesn't have to be narrow. It can incorporate all sorts of other things. Uh, in Vedanta, our spiritual path can also mean that we can read Sufi literature. We can read about the Christian saints. We can appreciate it better because of our Vedantic understanding than we could have otherwise. And yet we have our own special devotion to our tradition. So this is very, very important, this idea of Shraddha, that we have a very respectful attitude to all different paths, but Nishtha, special relationship with our own. Yeah, so Sri Ramakrishna used to say, whoever comes here thinks that I belong to their path, because as soon as they would come, his mind would go like that. The Vaishnavas would come, and he'll be inspired with all of the ideas of Radha, Krishna, and everything, and sing their songs and everything, and then naturally assume that this is the attitude that he prefers. And then the Shaktas will come, and the same thing, easily, everything Divine Mother. The songs of Mother Kali and Durga and everything. And in his mind, there was no real distinction. So we can't do exactly what he did. Of course, we know that because he experienced so much. After realization, he tried a different path, then another different path and everything. But we can appreciate all of these things and still stick to our own path. Now, how firm do we have to be? I don't think it means that we can't have equal devotion to Mother Kali and also Krishna and Durga and Shiva. We can do that, but some unifying factor that will mean that we're not jumping from one thing to another, that we're not giving up one thing. Oh, I couldn't do this. Let me try something else. Something that there has to be something that holds everything together, and this is Vedanta. This Vedanta thought and these concepts. The truth is one. The sages call it by various names. These are the things can tie everything together. And at the same time, if we really feel there's a tremendous devotion to Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, the Swamiji, and everything, that will never be shaken. That'll be the thing that we really hold on to. But at the same time, we can appreciate all of the other spiritual paths. My own experience is that I never really could truly appreciate some of the other spiritual paths in the world, Christianity, Judaism, Western religions, and things, until I discovered Vedanta. Then I could really go to any church, any synagogue, go anywhere, and really enjoy all of the everything that we find in the scriptures and things like that, except for the exclusive parts. Except for the exclusive parts that God loves us better than others, that we're the only ones who will go to heaven, except for that. But otherwise, these are all beautiful traditions. Yeah. The Sri Ramakrishna walked toward the Panchavati with M and a few other devotees. It was midday and time for the flood tide in the Ganges. They waited in the Panchavati to see the bore of the tide. Now, I don't know what this is exactly, but they were all so excited when this would happen. And apparently, it would be strong enough that sometimes it would break off portions of the earth, of the shore, even. Huh? Yeah. So it was a big excitement. Sometimes they would run, come, come, come. The war is coming. What do they call it in Bengali? Uh-huh. There's another word for it. Ban. Yeah. It's almost like a tiny little tidal wave, something that will come on the shore. And yeah. Anyhow, they were all excited when it would happen. They'd all go run out to see it. They waited in the Panchavati to see the bore of the tide. Master to the devotees. The ebb tide and flood tide are indeed amazing, but notice one thing. Now, this was such a beautiful trait of Sri Ramakrishna that everything reminded him of some spiritual truth. even seeing flood tide and ebb tide, it would remind him of some element of spiritual life. So, but notice one thing. Near the sea, you see ebb tide and flood tide in a river. But far away from the sea, the river flows in one direction only. So, if we take the Ganga, coming out of the Gomukh, that it'll have tremendous force. You'll never see it go back the other way. Tremendous force going down towards the plains. And when you get all the way to Gangasagar, then sometimes the river will flow into the ocean. Sometimes it'll flow back up. That you'll find salt water maybe some miles up even. And then sometimes it'll go back. There won't be any force, any flow to it like that. So this is used for different types of examples. In Gita, when we hear about how desires flow into the sage of steady wisdom, just like the rivers flow into the ocean. When we get down there, there's no disturbance. There's no spray that comes up or waves or anything. It just flows into it. You can hardly see any change that way. So that means for the sage, nothing will shake the sage. Even if some desire comes into the mind, it won't have any effect that way. Now he's going to give a different example. What does this mean? He says, far from the sea, the river flows in one direction only. What does this mean? Try to apply its significance to your spiritual life. Those who live very near God feel within them the current of bhakti, bhava, and the like. In the case of a few, the Ishvara kotis, for instance, one sees even mahabhava and prema. So, lukewarm devotion, I mean, sometimes it's a little bit, we feel a little devotional, sometimes we don't feel too much, just like the river going into the ocean. We want to feel that current, that strength of that current when the Ganges is coming from Himalayas. It's a nice example he gives. To M, what is the explanation of the ebb tide and flood tide? M. Yeah, M gets stuck a few times. One time he gets asked, well, is there something called logic in the West? And he has to give all the different examples of logic. Now he has to do flood tide. M. According to Western astronomy, they are due to the attraction of the sun and the moon. In order to explain it, M drew figures on the earth and began to show the master the movement of the earth, the sun, and the moon. The master looked at the figures for a minute and said, "Stop, please. It gives me a headache." Yeah. You know, we have this understanding that the knower Brahman is Sarvagya and Sarvavid, two things. Now, Sarvagya, Sarvavid, they mean more or less the same thing, all knowing. But the commentators, they have to give different meanings to both of them because you can't have redundancy in the scripture. So they say knowing everything in general and knowing everything in particular. But there's knowing everything in particular, it doesn't really mean that. It means that you know the gold is manifest in all different types of jewelry, but it doesn't mean that every fact of science and nature is known to God realized. Also, Ramakrishna could hardly do the mathematics. He could add, subtraction not very good, multiplication hardly at all. Yeah. So there was a school, Buddhist, if I remember correctly, called Kita Sankhyas, that they believed that Buddha, to be all-knowing, means that you know the number of insects in the whole universe. You know the number of grains of sand and all of the beaches of the earth. But then the other school said, no, this is ridiculous. This is not a sign of wisdom, that it means that what is that one thing knowing which everything is known? This according to Mundaka Upanishad. Presently the tide came up the Ganges. They heard the sound of the rushing water. The tide struck the bank of the river and flowed toward the north. Sri Ramakrishna looked at it intently and exclaimed like a child, "Look at that boat. I wonder what is going to happen to it." Yeah, apparently, really everything gets very choppy and can be a little dangerous. Yeah, we remember when M got on the boat and the river was so choppy that he said, "Let me off. I'm not going to go any further." Yeah. Presently, the tide came up the Ganges. They heard the sound of the rushing water. Oh, I just read that. Okay. No. Yes. Okay. The master and M sat down for a while in the Panchavati. The Sri Ramakrishna placing his umbrella on the cement platform. The conversation turned to Narayan. The boy was a student. Sri Ramakrishna looked upon him as Narayana, God himself, and was very fond of him. Master, have you noticed Naran's nature? Sri Ramakrishna used to call him Naran. His name is Narayan. Not Naren. There was a younger Naren, also in addition to Swamiji. He can mix with all old and young. Now, this is also a very nice uh, quality that we find in some people, young people, that they can easily sit with older people or young people and everything and have a nice conversation. This was something very, very typical of Swamiji, of Narendra, how he would just go and visit Girish Ghosh. How much older was he? Maybe 40, or at least 40 years older, something like that. And they would just go and sit and have conversations and chat and everything. For Swamiji, we see that. He formed these kind of relationships with people of all different ages. And so he's praising this Narayan for that same thing. He can mix with all, old and young. One cannot do this without a special power. Besides, all love him. Is he really artless? Now, this artless or guileless, this was something that Sri Ramakrishna really praised. That he used to say that the simplicity, uh, that this was essential for God realization. That calculating people, that people who are always worried about this and that and a little devious and deceitful and everything, yeah, bankamon, that they'll never be able to realize God. He says that those who are guileless and simple, that the simple people can realize God who is simple. Shows. M. I think so, Master. I understand he goes to your place. Is that so? M. Yes, sir. He has visited me once or twice. He was M's student. Yeah. Many of them, of course, came through him. Master, will you give him a rupee or shall I ask Kali about it? This Kali is not Swami Abhedananda. This was another devotee. M. Very well, sir. I shall give him the money. Master, that's fine. It is good to help those who yearn for God. Of course, he's a schoolboy. I don't know that he really had to have money, but still. Uh, he was one of many of the schoolboys that had to kind of secretly go. His parents didn't like the fact that he went. Uh, this they would force them to marry young and things like that, just out of fear of Sri Ramakrishna, and that they would become a monk and run away from home and everything. So it is good to help those who yearn for God. And M, of course, was very, very generous in a very quiet way. We hear about all these others, the Surendra and others at Balaram Bose, that would help pay for Sri Ramakrishna's Kashipur Garden House and for some for Holy Mother and Bharanagar Mutt and everything. But M did it very quietly. And very secretly, he somehow gave money to Narendra Swamiji's mother when they were in big trouble, very secretly because he knew Narendra would be very upset. He did it. And he helped support the young monks, Bharanagar Mutt and everything. And so he really followed that. And he didn't earn that much money. And he had a fairly large family. So, Master, that's fine. It is good to help those who yearn for God. Thus, one makes good use of one's money. What will you gain by spending everything on your family? Kishori had several children. His salary was too small to support his family. Sri Ramakrishna said to M, Naran said he would get a job for Kishori. Please remind him of it. Now, Kishori was M's younger brother. There's not a single mention of that in the entire Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. There's no introduction to the Kishori. Uh, M really wanted to, not that he was hiding it exactly, but in order to keep himself hidden in the whole thing, he doesn't talk at all about any family things. When he talks about his wife coming and everything, he uses a different name even. It'll be money or so he has a different pseudonyms that he uses. But for some reason, that he never mentions the fact that Kishori is his younger brother. He had several brothers, and it was the older brothers that were so troublesome. That's why one of the reasons he wanted to leave home. They had no interest in spiritual life. This Kishori, he became very, very devoted to Sri Ramakrishna throughout his whole life. I just read a little bit about him, and towards the end of his life, I guess his wife had passed away. He lived completely by himself, lived alone, some solitary place, practicing austerities, and then passed away. So Kishori had several children. M was now probably close to 30. So Kishori was probably in his 20s. See, we don't know anything about him. We don't hear about his age or anything. Even in the Bengali Gospel and the index, they don't say how old he is or anything. His salary was too small to support his family. Sri Ramakrishna said to him, Naran said he would get a job for Kishori. Please remind him of it. Now, this I also don't understand, since this Narayan was a schoolboy at that time. How he could get him a job, I don't know. The master walked away in the direction of the pine grove. Returning to the Panchavati, he said to M, Please ask someone to spread a mat outside my room. I shall lie down a few minutes. I am coming presently. When the master returned to his room, he could not find his umbrella and exclaimed, You have all forgotten the umbrella. Where was the umbrella? Oh, good. So you all remembered. Good. The busybody doesn't see a thing even when it is very near him. Sri Ramakrishna would get annoyed. This was one thing that was very much out of keeping with his personality as we understand it, that oblivious to everything. Mind is always in God. But the other side of it, when his mind was in this ordinary plane, he was very particular about everything. Yeah, he used to say, when I'm in that high mood, I don't know if my clothes are on or not. But when I'm in the lower mood, I never forget anything. And that was teaching the Holy Mother. When you leave a room, be the last one to leave to see if anybody left anything behind, and the first one to go when you first get there. Make sure everything's in order. All sorts of teachings like that. This is why, in our order of some of our senior swamis are so particular sticklers about everything being in its place, nice and neat and orderly and everything. It's a very good spiritual practice. So Sri Ramakrishna, he didn't like any type of sloppy thinking or working or anything. So you have all forgotten the umbrella. The busybody doesn't see a thing even when it is very near him. A man went to a friend's house to light the charcoal for his smoke, though all the time he had a lighted lantern in his hand. Another man looked everywhere for his towel. Finally, he discovered that it had been on his shoulder all the time. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The master ate the prasad from the Kali temple. Then he wanted to rest a while, but the devotees were still sitting in his room. He rested in the afternoon occasionally for a very short time, and at night he only slept for an hour or so. Would he get up at midnight and start talking to Divine Mother, or clapping his hands and singing, or going into meditative mood, something. So he wanted to rest a while, but the devotees were still sitting in his room. They were asked to come out, and then the master lay down. He said to Babu Ram, Come here, sit near me. Babu Ram answered, I am preparing betel leaf. The master said, Put your betel leaf aside. The devotee sat under the bakul tree in the Panchavati. Tarak is our future Swami Shivananda, Mahapurush Maharaj. There's a second Tarak. There are two Taraks. The other one is called Tarak of Belgaria. I don't know too much about him, but a householder. Tarak was just returned from Vrindavan, told them stories of his visit. A little later, Sri Ramakrishna was seated again on his couch, the devotees sitting on the floor. Shyamdas was singing with his party. He sang of the gopis' grief at their separation from Sri Krishna. Dry as a desert seemed the happy lake to them. The chatak died of thirst, gazing towards the clouds. The master became somewhat abstracted, but the musician could not create a spiritual atmosphere. This is one of the few times we find that. Surprisingly, another time is when Narendra is singing. Yeah. One time he's singing and Sri Ramakrishna leaves, and then later says, was it right of us to leave while he was singing? But I could tell that his mind is on other things a little bit, that he didn't feel the inspiration from it. Otherwise, Narendra sang, he would immediately go into ecstasy. So the master became somewhat abstracted, but the musician could not create a spiritual atmosphere. Sri Ramakrishna asked Nabai of Konnagar to sing a kirtan. Nabai was Manomohan's uncle. Manomohan was Rakal, Swami Brahmananda's brother-in-law, who brought him to Sri Ramakrishna the first time. He lived on the bank of the Ganges, devoting his time to prayer and meditation, and was a frequent visitor of Sri Ramakrishna at Dakshineswar. Nabai began the kirtan in a loud voice. The master left the couch and began to dance. Immediately, Nabai and other devotees began to dance around him. The atmosphere became intense with spiritual fervor. After the kirtan, Sri Ramakrishna resumed his seat. With great feeling, he began to sing of the Divine Mother, his eyes turned upward. This was not uncommon for songs about Radha and Krishna to start and then switch to Divine Mother, or the other way around, or Chaitanya. We don't know what would trigger a particular mood or anything in Sri Ramakrishna's mind, but he could just go from one to the other without feeling anything. Other times there'll be some in a particular mood, they don't want that mood disturbed. It has to remain the same type of thing. But his mind was different. So with great feeling, he began to sing of the Divine Mother. His eyes turned upward. O Mother, ever blissful as thou art, do not deprive thy worthless child of bliss. My mind knows nothing but thy lotus feet. The king of death scowls at me terribly. Tell me, Mother, what shall I say to him? He sang again. As is a man's meditation, so is his feeling of love. As is a man's feeling of love, so is his gain. And faith is the root of all. This, we hear that expression, Jaman Bhav Temni Lab, that is taken from this song. Sri Ramakrishna uses that very, very often. It has two meanings, really. This, as is a man's feeling of love, so is his gain. Yeah, this is talking about the bhava. The more we can feel that divine love. Yeah. The other way of understanding it is that everything is a question of our spiritual attitude. That is not a question of, say, doing puja. That is not a question of how well we perform puja, but what is our bhava? What is the feeling in our heart when we do it? What is that longing that we feel? And the same thing with any spiritual, philosophical understanding of things. That if we have great faith in this qualified non-dualism, and we follow that, then we'll also get the results of that. If we like non-dualism, we'll also get the results of that. So it's all a question of what's the feeling within our heart and what's our deeper understanding of things. So Jaman Bhav Temni Lam, Sri Ramakrishna repeats that so many times. He continued, this world, O Mother, is thy madhouse. What can I say of all thy virtues? Setting aside thine elephant, thou roamest about on foot. putting off thy gems and pearls, O self-willed mother. Thou dost adorn thy comely neck with the garland of human heads. Now thou must rescue Ram Prasad out of the forest of this world. Again he sang, why should I go to Ganga or Gaya, to Kashi, Kanchi, or Prabhas, so long as I can breathe my last with Kali's name upon my lips? These are all much longer songs than in the way M did it was sometimes, usually in the beginning, he'll give the whole song. Then after that, he'll give the first few lines, something like that. Yeah, this was based on a particular experience that Ram Prasad had, that he had tremendous desire to go to Kashi, to go on pilgrimage to Benares. And the Mother Kali came to him and said, why should you go to all of these places? That you worship me here, that this is enough. Yeah. So, Gore Boshe Tirtha Kori. So, sitting in my room, I'm going on pilgrimage. And a lot of songs end with something like that. So they got incorporated into many of these Ram Prasad songs. And Ramakrishna also, he used to say, why go to all these different places, that real pilgrimage places within the heart. If one remembers of God, then any place is a pilgrimage place. So there are a lot of songs with that theme. Why should I go to Ganga or Gaya? Not that these aren't wonderful places, and we should go and see these places and everything. But if we have that faith that we repeat the name of the Lord at the end, we have devotion to our chosen ideal, then any place will get liberation. And again, dwell, O mind, within yourself. Enter no other's home. If you but seek there, you will find all you were searching for. And then, the black bee of my mind is drawn in sheer delight to the blue lotus flower of Mother Shama's feet. These are all Ram Prasad and Kamalakanta songs. Yeah. This other one, there's another. His name was Madan. I don't know who he was exactly, that Goya Ganga song. But mostly Ram Prasad and Kamalakanta. And then, cherish my mother, my precious mother Shama, tenderly within, O mind. May you and I alone behold her, letting no one else intrude. Yeah, this is that idea of keeping our spiritual attitude and that love within our hearts hidden there, not making it public. So something that's very precious to us, we don't want it to be publicized and other people to know. If we find this people always talking about this experience, that experience, what a wonderful meditation and everything, then it's not a very good sign that if something we really have some type of deep experience, that we won't say much. We'll want to keep it hidden within. Yeah. Yeah, when this is a kind of a teenage boy-girl kind of thing. But we would know that somebody would go out, they'd go out on a date or something, they say, oh yeah, we did this and that, and then the other person would just keep very quiet. We say, oh, he really likes her. He won't say anything. As the master sang this last song, he stood up. He was almost intoxicated with divine love. Again and again he said to the devotees, cherish my precious mother Shama tenderly within. Then he danced and sang, is Kali my mother really black? The naked one of blackest hue lights the lotus of the heart. Now, this is the song that Swamiji sang the last day of his life. It's a Kamalakanta song. The master reeled as he sang. Niranjan came forward to hold him. The master said to him softly, don't touch me, you rascal. Now, this Niranjan, Sri Ramakrishna used to say, also is pure to his very bones. Almost, he would praise him almost as much as Baburam. Yeah, he was a very pure-souled person, very simple. Thakur loved him. But sometimes he would be in that mood where, yeah, let me sing and dance. Don't bother me too much. And other times he would say, Hey, don't hold me up. People will think that I'm drunk. Well, there's say in different moods, but he loved this Niranjan. Yeah. Softly, don't touch me, you rascal. Seeing the master dance, the devotee stood up. He caught hold of M's hand and said, "Don't be foolish, dance." M was very shy, and he didn't like to sing and dance with the others. Sometimes he would just sit there, and Sri Ramakrishna would get annoyed at him that this was a sign, Sankoch, sometimes they call it, yeah, that too worried about what will people say and everything, that just freely sing and dance. Who cares what anybody else thinks? So occasionally M will sing, or even get up, and Sri Ramakrishna will be very happy. He'll notice it. Sri Ramakrishna resumed his seat, still charged with divine ecstasy. Coming down a little to the normal state, he said, "Om, Om, 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 Om Kali." Again he said, "Let me have a smoke." Now this was another thing that he would do in order to bring his mind down. He would say, "Let me have something to eat, let me have a glass of water, let me have a smoke." Half the time he wasn't able to even, but he would say it. And sometimes they would actually prepare it for him. But this was a common thing. This helped him to bring his mind back down a little bit. Many of the devotees stood around. Mahimacharan was fanning him. Mahimacharan, he was a bit of a pundit. He did study Sanskrit and scriptures and everything, but he thought he knew far more than he really knew, and he was a show-off. This was the negative side of him. But Sri Ramakrishna liked him, and somehow he would build him up. He knew that he had memorized a few things, and he would say, "Chant this, chant that." So he knew that he liked to show off in front of others, so he gave him the opportunity. Yeah. So the master asked him to sit down and recite from the scriptures. Mahimacharan recited from the Mahanirvana Tantra. Om. I bow to thee, the everlasting cause of the world. I bow to thee, pure consciousness. Yeah, he fashioned himself as a real jnani also, Advaita and everything. Very proud. I bow to thee, pure consciousness, the soul that sustains the whole universe. I bow to thee, who art one without duality, who dost bestow liberation. I bow to thee, Brahman, the all-pervading, attributeless reality. Thou alone art the refuge, the only object of adoration. Thou art the only cause of the universe, the soul of everything that is. Thou alone art the world's creator, thou its preserver and destroyer. Thou art the immutable Supreme Lord, the Absolute. Thou art unchanging consciousness. Dread of the dreadful, terror of the terrible, refuge of all beings, purity of purifiers. Thou alone dost rule over those in the high places. Supreme over the supreme, the protector of protectors. Almighty Lord, who art made manifest as the form of all, yet art thyself unmanifest and indestructible. Thou who art imperceptible to the senses, yet art the very truth, incomprehensible, imperishable, all-pervading, hidden, and without form. O Lord, O light of the universe, protect us from harm. On that one alone we meditate. That one is the sole object of our worship. To that alone, the non-dual witness of the universe, we bow. In that one who alone exists and who is our sole eternal support, we seek refuge. The self-dependent Lord, the vessel of safety in the ocean of existence. He's very well known, hymn. Many, even some of our center, our Chicago center, I know, many years under Swami Bhashanandaji, they all, up in Sanskrit, they all recited this hymn every morning. I also like this, very beautiful.
Is it the Namami Shamishan one?
Namaste Sade Sarvalokashrayaya. Namaste Chite Sarup. And usually they'll do this Parasmarami first. those verses. Sri Ramakrishna listened to the hymn with folded hands. After it was sung, he saluted Brahman. The devotees did likewise. Adhar arrived from Calcutta and bowed down before the master. Now remember, this Adhar used to come virtually every day. Sometimes would fall asleep at night and everything, but he made it a habit of going to Dakshineswar every day. It wasn't easy for him. He had a long day of work. He would be exhausted, but still he would do it. Sometimes not get back till 12 at night. So Adhar arrived from Calcutta and bowed down before the master. Master to M. We have had such joy today. How much joy Hari's name creates. Is it not so? M. Yes, sir. Mahimacharan was a student of philosophy. That day, he too had chanted the name of Hari and danced during the kirtan. This made the master very happy. Yeah, he was a funny person. He used to chant this other hymn that if one worships Hari, then what is the need for tapas? If one doesn't, then what is used? Something like that. A little bit of devotional thing. So somebody was saying to him that, yeah, you also have some devotional side. He said, I do it because he tells me to do it. So he really liked to think of themselves as a real jnani. Tapasata daskim. It was about dusk. Many of the devotees took their leave. A lamp was lighted in Sri Ramakrishna's room, and incense was burnt. After some time, the moon came out, flooding the sky with its light. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on his couch. The couch means the small cot in bed, not like a Western couch. He was in a spiritual mood, absorbed in contemplation of the Divine Mother. Now and then he chanted her hallowed name. Adhar was sitting on the floor. M and Niranjan too were there. Sri Ramakrishna began to talk to Adhar. Master, what? You have come just now. We have had so much kirtan and dancing. Shyamdas began the kirtan. He is Ram's music teacher. Yeah, Ram was learning music from him, and he would go there every day. This Vaishnav Charan would go to Adhar's house and do kirtan for him. Yeah, what day is this? This is a Sunday, so Adhar could have come earlier. It was a weekday. So Shyamdas began the kirtan. He is Ram's music teacher, but I didn't enjoy his singing very much. I didn't feel like dancing. Later, I heard about his character. I was told he had as many mistresses as there are hairs on a man's head. And then he says, Adhar, didn't you get the job? Now, this is a theme that has been running through all of this, that he was trying to get a very big position that would, well, it'll say here, but anyhow, he even asked Ramakrishna to talk to the Divine Mother about it, and he went to all different types of influential people and everything, but he didn't get it. So didn't you get the job? Adhar held the post of deputy magistrate, a government post that carried with it great prestige. He earned 300 rupees a month, a good amount in those days. He had applied for the office of vice chairman of the Calcutta municipality. The salary attached to this office was 1,000 rupees, so over 3 times what he was getting. In order to secure it, Adhar had interviewed many influential people in Calcutta. Master to M and Niranjan. Hazara said to me, please pray to the Divine Mother for Adhar that he may secure the job. Adhar made the same request to me. I said to the mother, O mother, Adhar has been visiting you. May he get the job if it pleases you. This is about as lukewarm as Ramakrishna can be in requesting something from mother. But at the same time, I said to her, how small-minded he is. Now he can say this in front of Adhar because he loves him so much. Adhar knows that, and Adhar also loves him, and he could do that. And Adhar doesn't take it personally. They'll go back and forth a little bit, but it's not like he'll get angry and storm out or anything. It's a big insult. How small-minded he is. He's praying to you for things like that, and not for knowledge and devotion. To Adhar. Why did you dance attendance on all those small-minded people? You have seen so much and have heard so much. That means he's been visiting Sri Ramakrishna. He knows what is the only goal of life. He knows what it means to lead a simple type of life. After reading the entire Ramayana, to ask whose wife Sita is, Adhar. A man cannot but do these things if he wants to lead a householder's life. You haven't forbidden us to, have you? Master. Nivritti alone is good and not pravritti. There's a footnote. Nivritti and pravritti mean respectively inwardness of the mind and its inclination to outer enjoyment. So the path of nivritti is generally thought to be the monastic path. But in general, it means a greater desire to go inward, to not seek pleasure, enjoyment, satisfaction, not look upon external things as the goal of life, to have some interior recognition that the divine treasure is within one's own heart. And this is the way we feel. So nivritti also means either renunciation or leading a very simple type of life, not caring much for external things. Nivritti alone is good and not pravritti. Once, when I was in a God-intoxicated state, I was asked to go to the manager of the Kali temple to sign the receipt for my salary. Another footnote, Sri Ramakrishna was then acting as the salaried priest of the Kali temple. They all do it here. But I said to the manager, I cannot do that. I'm not asking you for any salary. You may give it to someone else if you want. I am the servant of God alone. Whom else shall I serve? Malik noticed the late hours of my meals and arranged for a cook. It must be Shambhu Malik. He gave me 1 rupee for a month's expenses. That embarrassed me. I had to run to him whenever he sent for me. It would have been quite a different thing if I had gone to him of my own accord. In leading the worldly life, one has to humor mean-minded people and do many such things. After the attainment of my exalted state, I noticed how things were around me and said to the Divine Mother, O Mother, please change the direction of my mind right now so that I may not have to flatter rich people. Not that he ever really did, but he knew how to flatter. He flattered Rocco's father a little bit. Huh? He could do it a little bit if he wanted to, but it was never for any personal gain. Yeah. It wasn't really flattery, but he knew that sometimes it was nice to make people feel good about themselves. Like there's Mahimachanand, that he'll say, yes, you've read so many books and things. Huh? To Adhar, be satisfied with the job you have. Now remember that Adhar will not live long after this. And Thakur, he had a premonition or else he knew it somehow. Be satisfied with the job you have. People hanker after a post paying 50 or 100 rupees, and you are earning 300 rupees. You are a deputy magistrate. I saw a deputy magistrate at Kamarpukur. His name was Ishwar Ghoshal. He had a turban on his head. Men's very bones trembled before him. I remember having seen him during my boyhood. Is a deputy magistrate a person to be trifled with? Serve him whom you are already serving. That means God. The mind becomes soiled by serving but one master and to serve 5 masters. Once a woman became attached to a Mussulman and invited him to her room, but he was a righteous person. He said to her that he wanted to use the toilet and must go home to get his water jar for water. The woman offered him her own, but he said, no, that will not do. I shall use the jar to which I have already exposed myself. I cannot expose myself before a new one. With these words, he went away. That brought the woman to her senses. She understood that a new water jar, in her case, signified a paramour. Narendra was in straitened circumstances on account of his father's unexpected death. He had been seeking a job to maintain his mother, brothers, and sisters. He had served a few days as headmaster of the Vidyasagar school in Bazaar. Now, this Ishan's not going to give up. Adhar, he's not going to give up. Adhar, may I ask if Narendra would accept a job? He knows Thakur will never criticize. He loves Narendra. Master, yes, he would. He has his mother, brothers, and sisters to support. Adhar, well, Narendra can support his family with 50 or with 100 rupees. Will he try for 100? So Sri Ramakrishna is not going to put up with this line of reasoning. Master, worldly people think highly of their wealth. They feel that there is nothing like it. Shambhu said, it is my desire to leave all my property at the lotus feet of God. But does God care for money? He wants from his devotees knowledge, devotion, discrimination, and renunciation. After the theft of the jewelry from the temple of Radhakanta, Mathur Babu said, "Oh God, you could not protect your own jewelry. What a shame." Once he wanted to give me an estate and consulted Hridoy about it. I overheard the whole thing from the Kali temple and said to him, "Please don't harbor any such thought. It will injure me greatly." Okay, this will continue a little bit. We can stop here. Yeah, it's very helpful if we know these little facts that he's not going to live long. How this it wouldn't change things too much because really, why was he so anxious to get this position? He was young. He was 30 or something. Huh? He was relatively young, and was making a good living and everything. But some little desire for that. Yeah. But he was greatly devoted to Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna loved him very much. These are all like within a family, the way a father would talk to a son. Okay. Om Niranjanam Nityamananda Rupam Bhaktanukham Bhatur Vikraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namah. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who was stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Okay, so we're stopping this session at the bottom of page 519. Okay, thank you, everyone. Everyone have a nice week. We'll see you next time.